I am Father Richard Nyombi, member of the Society of the Missionaries of Africa. Here they are commonly known as the White Fathers. And we are here at the parish called Mapela and Nabulagala Catholic Parish. Our patron saint is St. John the Baptist. Now this parish is very historical in the history of the Catholic Church in Uganda because it was the first mission post of the first pioneer missionaries in 1879. So when they came here, it's from here that they started the evangelization of Uganda. And so, lucky enough also, we have the remains of those 5 pioneer missionaries. They are buried also here in our memorial chapel, which was built when we are celebrating 60 years of their arrival in 1939. Charles Rwanga at that time, when he's known, it was after the missionaries had left here, when they had gone to Narukolom. But most likely he came because the first catechumens who came from the royal palace, from Rubaga, and then afterwards from here in Kasubi, some of them came here to follow catechism lessons. But we don't have him in the list. We only know him after the death of Joseph Mukasabali Kudembe in 1885. Yes. Well, what we know, I think, most about him is that I think he had that talent of leadership. After the death of Joseph Mukasabali Kudembe, who was the first leader of the Christian community in Uganda, when the other one was killed in November 1985, it is him who is going to be chosen to take his place. But at that time, he was working under Joseph Mukasabali Kudembe. So he is going to lead the catechumens who were at that time working with him in the palace. And when he's being talked about, he was leading others. For example, when he was, they were digging that artificial lake in Mengo. So what we really know here about him was that he was a leader. He was a charismatic leader, because even when we see that the martyrs are condemned to death, the future martyrs are condemned to death, he is the leader. He's the one who comes out as the leader. And also trying to care more about the young catechumens who were at that time were under him, under his authority. So I think what really comes out of him was as a leader, as martyrs. But they were surely supported and encouraged by the missionaries, especially Mapela. So Joseph Mukasabali Kudembe, we can say about 3 reasons why he was killed. So one of them was the post he had, he was so close to the king, and he was even a confidant of Mwanga. That was a confidant. So, and there was fear from those, for example, the Katikiro, the prime minister at that time, that eventually it could be made the prime minister, the Katikiro. So there was that jealousy from the leadership in the government of the Kabaka, who were fearing these young men to take over. So that, of course, then these are going to influence the king. They're going to influence the king. Telling the king that if you are not careful, these people, they are going to take over the kingdom. And eventually they will make one of them to become a king, since you are not a Christian. So there is that, we could say, political reason, which made the others hate them. But then these were, of course, the Kabaka loved them and trusted them because for them their faith meant that they had to be honest. Now, then there is the problem of the Protestant James Huntington, the bishop, who was killed. So on that, he also confronted the Kabaka, telling him, don't kill him. because that was not the habit of your father. So that that also was one of the reasons. And you know that Barikudembe and St. Andrew Kabwa, they were first Protestants. They were catechumens with the Protestants. And then they had come to the side of the Catholics. But they kept the relationship. They never cut that relationship. Even they were going back to help them for the instruction of the catechumens of the Protestant. So when they had that issue, well, he felt that it was his responsibility also to intervene. And so on that point also, that's one of also the points that the Kabaka will say, who are you to tell me to intervene? And that is going to cause his also being condemned. Especially that point was very key when he was trying to defend that bishop and not to kill them. Yes, and it was more or less the point which put everything now for his death in motion. So Charles Lwanga was already working and he was under Joseph Mukasa Barikudembe. He was more or less the second after. So when the other one, more or less automatically is the one. And then within the Christian community also, he was, since he was so close to Joseph Mukasa Barikudembe and were already working together, giving instruction at night and so on. So it more or less came out to automatic appointment that he became the leader. Now, the other one, how was he killed? He was, so when he was condemned to death by the Kabaka. But again, the Katikiro, the Prime Minister, pushed very much. So when he was condemned and they took him to Nakivubo, where he was killed, that was one of the areas where those condemned would be killed. So when he was taken there to be killed by Mukajanga and his men, Abambowa, we are told that meanwhile the Kabaka changed. He changed his decision and said, you go and tell them not to kill him. But the Prime Minister had made sure that they kill him as soon as possible, because he knew that the Kabaka would change. So by the time they went, he had been killed and he was going to be burnt. So how was he killed? They say, well, that he was first hit on the neck before being put on fire and burnt. So that's how he was killed. A place which is not very far from the palace. At that time, the palace was in Mengo. You see, for the Uganda Martyrs, all of them, 22, were taken as a group. You know that in the history, all the 22 were beatified, 1920, so they were beatified. Then there was almost 44 years before they were canonized. And there, I think there were some doubts, were they killed for religion or not. So in the first one, for the beatification, usually for the martyrs, if you did proven, you don't need even a miracle. For a martyr that somebody has been killed for his faith, you don't need a miracle.
Okay.
You don't need a miracle. At least at the level of the beatification. And that's what happened. There was no miracle which caused their beatification. So now, at that time, there were doubts. So for those 44 years, and it came even at one time to say, okay, now let us go only for Charles Lwanga. Then let us go for Charles Lwanga and Matia Mulumba. Because Charles Lwanga was very instrumental here in the palace, and Matia Mulumba in the community in Mtiana. So these were leaders who were known for their virtues, for their zeal, and also taking risks. So then at that time, they had, after the beatification, they had to look for the miracle, because they were still at that time seeking for the miracle. And the miracle which was done was the cure of two sisters, two missionary sisters of the Society of the Our Lady of Africa, the White Sisters, who were cured of, how do you call it now? It was like as you have COVID at that time. At that time, sickness was deadly. Was deadly. So they caught it when they were caring for the sick of that. I don't know.
Leprosy.
It was not leprosy. It's another disease. Now it's like a virus which comes and they have no. So and those sisters, so they were in the hospital in Rubaga Hospital when the bishop at that time it was Misho, Edward Misho, who said, okay, we pray for them, bringing the remains, the relics of the martyrs, putting on them, those relics to be cured. And that's the miracle which eventually was presented and accepted as a miracle for their canonization in 1964. Well, I think to answer that question would be is to look at the fruits of evangelization. What are the fruits of evangelization in these last, I don't know how many years, what the church brought. Surely there are always negatives. You can say on this, they condemned our beliefs and we are saying we are pagans and so on. We are coming on the side of the Catholics. We are never linked to any government. So as far as in Uganda is concerned and the colonization of Uganda, I think the Catholic Church is safe. When the missionaries arrived here, the Kabaka was trying to see which group could support him and even who in their government to come in for his protection. So he went on the side of the Catholics, says, okay, can you go and tell your government to come and protect me because there were threats from the north, and can you, and they said, well, we have come here, we are not sent by the government. The one who sent us is the Pope, and we are not involved in that. We can put you in contact, but we are out of that. So I think from that point of view, as far as colonization is concerned, for the Catholic Church, we can say it is a blessing. We are not from the beginning. And then, of course, on the side of our Protestant brothers and sisters, well, that is history. We know that eventually they helped their government to take this country as a protectorate, but as a colony. Now, for the fruits, you just look at this, our country up to now, and you see what has been done by the church and what was done by the colonialists and eventually all the governments that have come in, and then where. And you ask yourselves, if the church was not there, where would we be? Where would we be? And today, you can say that we have many issues, and we can say, that comes from the time of the colonialism. But then you can say, take away Christianity today, what is going to remain, especially on the issue of morals? Because I think what we have the problem is not so much an economic crisis, even a democratic, it's a moral issue, spiritual issue. And I think that, well, we have gained a lot. We have gained a lot from evangelization, which was brought by the church on that, I think, key issue of morals in the country. And I think the missionaries did a lot to conserve also the local cultural values, moral and spiritual. So even the languages. So I think they did a lot. Surely there are those negatives that at the beginning they were looking at all our values, some of them were satanic, but eventually I think there was conversion, and that today I think we can say we have gained more than. I think that what the church did is a foundation that we can build on to move forward. Yes. So we can do some corrections here and there, but I think there is a very strong foundation on which we can build in order to face the crisis that we are going through. Well, I think when you look at these matters in general, what really surprises us is that they were still catechumens almost. Just in a matter of 6-7 years, they were ready to die for something. So they had an idea to die for. And I always say they had an idea to die for than to kill for. And I think if, for example, in Uganda, but also in Africa and elsewhere, one of the things we have to learn from the Uganda Martyrs is non-violence. We are so much marked by violence in our country and in Africa that I think the Uganda Martyrs, they stand up. And that's always all the martyrs. Usually the martyrs, they are really non-violent. That's the message. And of course, our martyr by excellence is Jesus. Jesus was a martyr. And so I think that idea of non-violence, the Ugandan Martyrs and the Christian community at that time, they would have revolted. They would have, taken arms to fight, but they never did that. They never did that. Surely there was the influence of the missionaries, but amongst themselves, they never. And I think that was from what they had learned about what a Christian should, not to pay back. And then, of course, forgiving. Their story is marked by forgiveness, forgiving those who had condemned them to death and killed them. So I think that is very, very, very strong. Now the other also, I think, point that we learn is surely that religion is not just on an intellectual. They didn't know much. This when you see the catechism they used, it is a miraculous catechism, I say, because that is a very rudimentary catechism, but out of it we have saints. So then there, I think, for a believer, you see that there is a hand of God. It was not themselves. It was not themselves. It was not the knowledge they knew so much about Christianity that they were able to face that violence and the way they were tortured and so on, and they never paid back. So I think that also is it. And then, of course, defiance to the authority, the powers. So the way Christianity empowered them to stand. At that time, you never, even today, we have here among the Baganda, you never answer back the Kabaka. Once the Kabaka has said, the king has said, that's it. But they, because of their faith and so on, they were able to, their faith told them, okay, they were very loyal. They are very loyal, and that's why they had been chosen to be working for the king. But when it came to choose between the King of Kings and the king, they said no, the other one, but with all due respect to the king, they never despised the king. And even they say why they accepted death is, well, the king had condemned them, so they had to accept it. So they were very loyal up to the end, but their loyalty also had gone a bit higher. Christ was the king of their kings. So I think, and then of course also conversion. So their conversion meant that their way of life also changed. And that's, I think, where we have to big challenge. We are many today who are Christian by name, but the life doesn't change. We are baptized, but our life doesn't change. And for them, they became Christians and their way of life changed. The way they were looking at the others, the way they were looking to the authority, etc., and their generosity. Their generosity increased very much. So I think all those are all values that we can learn from the martyrs. And then maybe the last thing is that the Ugandan martyrs, when they were being canonized, they were not canonized as Ugandan martyrs. They were canonized as African martyrs. Paul VI, when he was canonizing, he never mentioned the martyrs of Uganda. It's African martyrs. And I think that was also that we, the church, in canonizing the Ugandan martyrs, that was a moment of renewal, of rebirth. And he was saying the Pope, he said Africa has been born free when he was canonizing them. So that was the time when many of our African countries were getting independent. And then there was that also, I don't know, communism, socialism, which was coming in, and they were attacking also the different regions. You divided the countries and so on. So in canonizing them, the Pope was on to say, okay, there is that political independence which is coming, but also maybe this rebirth for the church to work together, church and state, state and church, that really this independence is only, not only political, economical, but also spiritual. So I think they are a source of renewal if we take them seriously.
I have one particular question. Father, you've really mentioned very well, and also listening to the way you're explaining, I see a great inspiration from the African church to the Western world in line with the work and the faith of the Uganda Martyrs. When the evangelization went on here, many people's lives were changed, the faith grew firm, but now the world is, especially the Western world, is facing a decline in faith. Can this message of the Uganda Martyrs have a word or communication to people outside Africa in terms of strengthening their faith?
I think so. Already we have, I think today, we have missionaries from Africa going to Europe and even to the States. They are all over. They are all over, and I think that was the dream of the founders of different missionary congregations when they were starting. They say, well, eventually it will be the Africans who will be the missionaries to themselves. But then we are also seeing that now God is also using Africans also now to go and revive the faith in Europe where we had received the first missionaries. So I think, yeah, it can be their story if it is taught and people come to know it. I think it can help. It can help a lot. Yes.
Batibwa mu bukambwe n'ennaku bayokyebwa awatali kusasinwa mu muliro ne babengeya kyokka nga bagumu tebatya nga bayimba basanyukira kimu kutuuka mu ggulu. Batibwa mu bukambwe n'ennaku bayokyebwa awatali kusasinwa mu muliro ne babengeya kyokka nga bagumu tebatya nga bayimba basanyukira kimu kutuuka mu ggulu. Mukulike abajulizi aba Uganda, mukulike abajulizi aba Uganda, muline Yesu mukulu musanyu. Ensigo ey'okukkiriza gye mwasiga yabonawona mwalondawo okufa olwa Kristo, kati eddiini mu Uganda etinta. Ensigo ey'okukkiriza gye mwasiga yabonawona mwalondawo okufa olwa Kristo, kati eddiini mu Uganda etinta. Mukulike abajulizi aba Uganda, mukulike abajulizi aba Uganda, muline Yesu mukulu musanyu. Mukulike abajulizi aba Uganda, mukulike abajulizi aba Uganda, muline Yesu mukulu musanyu. mwesimye mwabazira muli ba mukisa muline Yesu mugulu mwesimye mwabazira muli ba mukisa muline Yesu mugulu mwesimye mwabazira muli ba mukisa muline Yesu mugulu mwesimye mwabazira mukisa muline Yesu mugulu mwesimye mwabazira mukisa muline Yesu mugulu mwesimye mwabazira mukisa muline Yesu mugulu.
For faith and love they gave it all. Their hearts of sacrifice portrayed. The seed of faith was sown in here in glorious Uganda.
For faith and love they gave it all. Their hearts of sacrifice portrayed. The seed of faith was sown in here in glorious Uganda.
Blessed Uganda Martyrs, blessed are the saints, anointed ones. Blessed Uganda Martyrs, now with God in heaven. Blessed Uganda Martyrs, blessed are the saints, anointed ones. Blessed Uganda Martyrs, now with God in heaven.
From servants now to saints, full of faith we stood it all. The seed of faith was sown in here in glorious Uganda. From servants now to saints, full of faith we stood it all. The seed of faith was sown in here in glorious Uganda.
Blessed Uganda Martyrs, blessed are the saints, anointed ones. Blessed Uganda Martyrs, now with God in heaven. Courage portrayed, generations shall sing every day. 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 The seed of faith was sown in